Hello everybody, so I just got out of seeing Glass. As you know, I was really hyped up for this movie. I was really talking about it on the channel. I loved Unbreakable. I loved Split. I thought they were both excellent films. I thought the idea of trying to make kind of like a realistic, believable superhero movie and to kind of talk about like how does the world change, etc. if superheroes are real. And that's kind of what I liked about Batman versus Superman, was the whole thing about Superman struggling with basically being considered a god, and his just lack of comfort, his uncomfortableness with that. And you also saw that in Man of Steel. So I liked those two movies, and at the end of Split, when Bruce Willis showed up, I'm like, this is awesome, we're gonna have a crossover film. It makes perfect sense. We're gonna have Mr. Glass back. Mr. Glass, I think, is one of the best villains in cinema. He's very fascinating. Villains that have a motivation other than evil are always kind of cool. And his motivation is very complex. I did a whole video on him that I'm going to put up at a later date. But he was interesting, and the Beast is interesting, or the Horde, whatever you want to call him. He has a couple names. It's kind of funny because when I watched Split, I was like, I know that guy from somewhere. He seems really familiar. And then I looked it up a while back. I'm like, oh, he was Leto Atreides from Children of Dune, that TV show no one watched but me. So that was kind of cool. But yeah, he's also very interesting because he kind of has his own ideology. He believes he was severely abused as a child, and because he was severely abused, he developed this persona, the Beast. He has, I think it's like 26 different personas that he can switch between. And the Beast being the one with superpowers. So he views people who have been through suffering, severe suffering, as being pure. In the first movie, in Split, he kidnaps a bunch of girls, but he ultimately lets Casey go because she's been molested by her uncle, and she understands what suffering is. And interestingly, kind of her interaction with him gives her the strength to go and get her uncle arrested for being a molester. So that was really interesting. He kind of, as he talks about, he kind of views himself as a bit of an IRL thought patrol, because he's like, the girls he kidnaps tend to be like skanks, and he calls them impure. So yeah, so after the events of Unbreakable, Bruce Willis went on to become a superhero called the Overseer. So as we remember from Unbreakable, his superpowers are super strength, super endurance, and the ability to see people's sins when he touches them. So he's founded his own company, done home security along with his son. His wife has died of leukemia. And yeah, so yeah, she's died of leukemia, and he's just taken on the role of kind of outside of his business, full-time superhero. He wanders around at night, kind of bumping into people until he finds people who do bad things, and then he beats them up, which is based. So that's pretty cool. And the Beast, the Horde got away, and the Horde, after getting away, has continued his serial killing antics. So we're going to get into major spoilers. And this seemed like a really good setup for a movie. We're going to have 3 superhumans, all of whom I find to be really good characters. David Dunn's a great character. I like Bruce Willis as an actor. Samuel L. Jackson does a great job as Mr. Glass. James McAvoy is really good as the Horde. So I was just like, okay. So early in the movie, David Dunn bumps into the Horde, figures out where he's holding the girls, and he goes and saves them. And then they get into a fight, and as part of the fight, the police show up, and David elects to surrender rather than killing cops. Whereas with the Horde, they use his weakness, which is the bright light, to capture him. So they're taken to a mental institution, and this is where the film really starts to go off the rails. and kind of starts its slow descent into self-destruction. About 80% of, maybe 75 is, 80% is a little high. 75% of the movie takes place in the mental hospital with this super obnoxious, bitchy doctor just like talking to them the whole time, trying to convince them that they're not superhumans, trying to probe their psyches. The issue is we dealt with all of this in the previous movies, so we just have to see the same shit over again. Like, we know about David Dunn and his attempt at his drowning. We know that James McAvoy was abused by his mother. We don't need to see this over again. But that's most of the movie. And it's weird. It kind of reminds me of Evangelion episode 25, The End of the World, where it's literally just like psychobabble. It's like someone just sitting in a chair, having someone say inane shit to them. And that's basically like half of this movie. And then, like, a lot of it is just because they're like, yeah, James McAvoy is a really good actor. So, like, 25% of the movie is just him going through his different personalities. Which isn't bad, but it's not very inspired. It's not like, I wanted a story. I wanted a plot. But instead we get this. And she almost convinces the Horde and David Dunn that they're not superheroes. But then Mr. Glass, who's been sedated for the last 18 years, but has managed to get around being sedated and is now hatching his evil scheme to get out, manages to break out both David and the Horde. His goal apparently being to show the world that superheroes are real by blowing up a giant tower that's being built in Philadelphia. And while he's there, he's going to go and try and blow it up, and along with the Horde, and David's going to show up and stop him. And they're going to have this superhero fight, and it's going to show the world that he was right all along. His big theory that superheroes are records of people with extraordinary abilities that kind of linger in the popular consciousness. I think there was a similar idea in the Wanted comic. I never read it because it looks like trash, but there's kind of an idea there because they killed off all the superheroes, and because of that, the memory of them kind of lingers in the form of comic books. So that happened. So him and the Horde team up, and they manage to break out of the mental institution. By this point, it's been like an hour and a half, and I'm just like, something happened. So they get outside, and we begin to have an overly long action sequence of David and the Horde fighting. And it's not very interesting. It's kind of boring and lame, and it goes on way too long. And then eventually, there's like the first of the M. Night Shyamalan twists. What the twist that James McAvoy's father was on the train that got blown up in Unbreakable, and because of that, his mother abused him. So he fatally wounds Mr. Glass, and him and David have a fight in like a tank of water. So David's almost dying. So then, like, the second M. Night Shyamalan twist happens, that there's this secret society of people who are dedicated to exterminating all superhumans, who sent the psychologist. Because that's one of the ways that they get rid of them without having to kill them, is convincing them they're crazy and they're not actually superheroes. Apparently, for every superhero that's created, a supervillain is also created. So to maintain the balance of the force, they try to neutralize all of them. So one of the SWAT team members drowns David in a pool of water, and he dies. Yes, Bruce Willis's character is dead. What the hell is that about? What kind of, like, it was just really lame. And then Casey, the actress who plays Casey, by the way, is extremely beautiful. I find her very attractive. But she manages to convince the Beast to go back to being Kevin Crumb, Rumpel Crumb, or whatever his name is. And because he goes back to being Kevin Rumpel Crumb, he doesn't have the immunity to bullets anymore, so he gets shot and dies. And Mr. Glass dies of his wounds. And I'm like, this is super lame. This is a fucking horrible ending. And then After that happened, there's the second twist. It turns out that Mr. Glass never intended to escape. His master plan was they had put all these video cameras all over the place, so that they could record him if he was trying to do stuff. So he had them all record the fight. So, and then he sends the footage to Casey, his mother, and David's son, and they post it on the internet. So the secret that they tried to protect is out. Superheroes exist, and the world will never be the same. And the film ends. And I was just like, what? What did I just watch? And like, I made it sound a lot better than it was, because most of this film was just boring. The psychologist saying the same saying stuff that was interesting in the previous movies, but we have no desire to be to sit through again. And it's nonsense. It's an M. Night Shyamalan. Like, there's so many levels of M. Night Shyamalan in this. Like, he had a good idea, and then he ruined it, and then he kind of redeemed himself, and then he made it bad again. And like half an hour into the movie, I was like, this isn't so bad. Why did this get such bad reviews? And it just went downhill and downhill and downhill. And then the villains teamed up, and I'm like, okay, this movie's looking up. And then we had like a fake out ending. And then we had a second fake out ending. And it was just really weird. Would I recommend seeing it? No. Because it's boring. It's not interesting. It completely squanders the opportunity to tell a really good, interesting story by just having nonsense and just having like boring, random stuff instead of a story. So that's my review of Glass. Most disappointing movie of the year. Probably will be the most disappointing movie of the rest of the year. Anyways, I'll talk to you guys later.